Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Steamboats. Today is a special episode. We have our first guest star, Sebastian, who is going to be talking with us about Risk of Rain. Now, Sebastian has played the game a lot more than I have, and he is also the person who gets most of the gameplay footage that you see in these videos. So, let's a round of applause for him. So, Risk of Rain. I haven't played that much of it. I've only played about 7 hours. But so far, it's been a pretty fun experience. It is a roguelike where you go in as multiple characters and you try to defeat a stage boss and you collect items. So can you tell us a little bit about the items?
Well, some of the items are basic. They increase your attack speed, your movement speed, your damage. But some are really special and will slow enemies down or have very circumstantial specific effects. Like there's one of them where you have to deal damage to 4 enemies within quick succession, and then it will boost your damage highly. It's a really hard to get item.
Combining these items, you can make some really powerful builds, and I think the most special thing is that they all stack onto your player model, onto your character, and it makes you look really goofy by the time you have a really overpowered build. In Risk of Rain 2, you can play as a multitude of classes who all have their different abilities and strengths and skill sets. My favorite class, I think, is Bandit, who you'll see me playing as in the gameplay footage. He comes with a shotgun that sprays in a horizontal formation and also has plenty of other multitude abilities that I can't really even explain right now because, like I said, I haven't played the game all that much. How about you?
My favorite class has to be the Loader. She comes with two giant iron gauntlets that she can punch enemies with, dealing a bunch of damage. And one of her abilities is to charge up a punch for 2,000% of her regular damage. And it is basically her heavy hitter the whole time. But she also has a bunch of other abilities.
And isn't her damage based on her momentum? So the faster she's going, the more damage she does to a specific enemy?
Yeah, she's a grapple that lets her zip around the field and lets her move faster. And her charged up punch actually increases her speed. So what you want for her more is more speed items because she does more damage based off of that, less than more damage items.
So these and a multitude of classes can make it so this game is basically for anyone. You can choose any of them and they all have different ranges of skills and strengths. Now, we cannot talk about Risk of Rain without talking about the soundtrack. I neglected to talk about the soundtrack in my previous videos. I really should have, but I'm going to start today. And Risk of Rain soundtrack, as you're going through the stages, as you're grabbing those items and trying to level up for a boss, it is so groovy. It's hard to explain. I don't know if I'll be able to show it in this video, but I really suggest looking up the Risk of Rain soundtrack. It really helps make the experience all that more fun. So I know basically nothing about Risk of Rain's story, so I'm going to throw that over to Sebastian to explain a little bit.
The Risk of Rain story entails a crew of a ship that has crashed onto this planet. They don't know what destroyed their ship, but they're on this planet, and some of the chests contain items from their ship that allow them to make their way through the levels. And then they make it to the moon of the planet, which contains an entity on the moon that has the ability to increase the gravity and take your items. Unfortunately, we didn't get any gameplay of that because we died a lot.
I don't know if I neglected to mention, but it is a roguelike, and you do have to restart after every death. You have to restart from stage 1 and all that. Now, the reason it's called Risk of Rain is because it's almost literally raining enemies constantly. They're everywhere, and it becomes really hectic, especially whenever you're fighting a boss and you're waiting for the teleporter, which you have to activate to fight the boss, to charge up so you can leave the stage, and enemies are constantly teleporting in, and you just have to deal with all that before you can leave the stage. Now let's move on to what it is on Steam. The Steam reviews are currently overwhelmingly positive with 96% positive reviews. It is on all platforms as far as I know: Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, PS4, and Mac OS, Windows, all the spam. Now let's move on to our personal review, with our first category being visual style. Now, I wouldn't call it Risk of Rain 2's visual style simplistic, but it's very stylized, and I think you wouldn't really see it anywhere else. That's why I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. What do you think?
I think that it has its own unique style. It definitely makes it simpler as so that all the enemies happening doesn't hurt the system itself. So it definitely is it's a great visual effect, but it is a little lackluster and it doesn't add too much detail to the enemies.
But it does give a good balance between performance and gameplay, so where you can have all the enemies in the intended way to play the game without having too many frame drops. Now, gameplay. As far as I'm concerned, the gameplay is pretty dang good. Even I've played with almost all the classes. I haven't quite unlocked them all yet, but so far I've liked all the classes. They all seem pretty easy to pick up but have a high skill ceiling. Now, fun factor. Like I said, it's pretty fun, but I wouldn't say that it is a 5 out of 5. It can get frustrating at times, but you can't really blame them for that. It is a roguelike. Now, like every single game I've covered here, it is more fun with friends, even though in a regular Risk of Rain playthrough, you don't interact with your friends all that much. They are there in the stage helping you fight, but overall it's not a lot of friend interaction, but it's still really fun with friends.
My favorite moment has to be when it was just me left. Both Dallas and one of my other friends had died, and it was just me soloing this really hard boss, and I was terrified out of my mind. It's just them cheering me on. But eventually, I was able to actually beat the boss and continue through the next level, and so Dallas and my other friend came back to life.
All right, that'll be it for this episode of Steamboat. Join me next week whenever I will be talking about a game called Dead Cells. Thank you so much, Sebastian, for coming on the show and doing this with us. And we're sailing on out of here. Woo! Woo!